Squilly by Willy, Squilly by Willy, Squilly by Willy, Squilly by Willy, Squilly by Willy. Hello, I'm Jesse Revell Reviews reviewer Jesse Revell of Jesse Revell Reviews, and today I have my guest and somewhat of a friend, William.
I am somewhat of a friend,
William.
Don't
talk until I tell you to talk. And then so he's done, a lot of music that I like, and I think music has been a great bonding experience for us. And so today, I'm just gonna review his EP. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, I am Willy Hooker, music maker, Willy Hooker of Willy Hooker's Music. I enjoy making music.
All right, I didn't tell you that you could steal my format. All right, so this EP originally wasn't even supposed to be an EP. And adjust my camera a bit, and there we go.
Yeah, it was just it's just like a bunch of songs that I was just making for a little bit, and then I just saw that they kind of all fit together in a nice way, and then I just kind of went from there. I had a bigger plan at first, but then it was kind of like, you know what, this is a nice little package.
I've heard that before. Did anybody specifically give you an idea? Did anybody, one of your friends, potentially me, text you and tell you should make this into an EP?
You might have. I can't quite remember. You probably inspired me to do that in some way, shape, or form. Yeah,
I did. Okay, so I guess what's gonna happen is we're gonna go through each song one by one, and we're just gonna talk about your process for each song and sort of what I thought about the song, and you can talk about the lyrics and stuff. Before we started recording, you mentioned that you haven't listened to it in a couple months, which is fine. It's actually not. You should have listened to it a couple more times.
Yeah, I should have listened to it. I should have studied up on my own music.
Well, especially because you knew this interview was happening for about a week.
Yeah.
Or more.
I'm just terrible.
Yeah. So we can reschedule if you want.
Yeah, let's do it right now.
Okay. All right. So the first song, Clear Sky. What was your process for this song? What was your inspiration?
It's for that one, it was just like lots of weird imagery that I wanted to pull from just like experiences that I've had, and just how trippy like life is and nature and stuff like that. And it kind of just, I don't know, I've found like as I was putting the EP together, it just kind of worked as an intro to everything. Like it's just it just kind of like has like an opening feel to it. Like a lot of the music that I make though is like lyrics are like the last thing, right? So it's like a lot of the themes that happen are kind of inspired by the music itself. So, and a lot of the songs on this in particular were like little acoustic parts that I would start off with, right? A lot of the songs have like acoustic guitar in them. Like it's somewhere in there in the layers.
Yeah, because I was going to say, in my notes for this song, I actually have that the intro works perfectly. Like the intro of this song works perfectly as an intro to the EP. Because it starts out with this like simple sort of like, I think it's an acoustic guitar. And you sort of keep stacking instruments on top of it. And I was actually wondering, how do you write intros like this? Because I know for me at least, I've done it before where, the recorded song, how it works is, you have this guitar intro and then the instruments slowly start coming in. And so, like I've done things where I've written it like that, where the guitar is the first thing I've written, and then the keyboard that comes in next, that was the next part. And so it like almost like mirrors. So is it similar with this or?
Yeah, I'd say it's very similar. Like it's like, I'm just taking, like I'll write the entire acoustic part for the song first, and then I'll see like, okay, like I've done this like beginning intro riff this many times, like after X amount of times, I'll have this instrument come in. Oh, did you get that little notification sound on my phone?
Oh, no.
Did you hear that? You didn't hear that? Okay,
so,
that's
no.
good.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Because that was a loud noise in my headphones.
Oh, that's okay.
But yeah, it's like, it's basically that. It's like, I've already like made this riff, and I've usually in my head, I kind of think it out when I'm doing the first layer. I'll be like, okay, let's repeat this riff a bunch of times so it gives space to have more instruments introduce themselves over top of it. And then I kind of go in like the order of instruments. Usually it's like guitars first, just to have a bass, because that's like my main instrument that I play. And then after that, it'll be like bass guitar, or like drums. Drums usually comes right afterwards. Then bass, because bass kind of fits in with the drums, but then also uses the melody from the guitar. And then after that, it's like whatever I think of next. Like I might think of a keyboard part, then throw that in there. And then vocals always come to last, because then you want to have that whole foundation of the song.
Yeah, for sure.
Throw the vocals in.
I like that you said that you do drums second, because to me, drums they can be a very active component in songwriting, and drums can really determine the tone. And so if you start with the guitar and then do drums, you're really setting like, okay, here's the pace of the song throughout.
Yeah.
And then when you add in everything else, they really just dictate how you write the other parts.
Yeah, it's like usually when I just have that guitar part, I still don't even know what the song's going to sound like at all. But once I get the drums in there, it's like, oh, okay, everything starts to flesh out from there.
Yeah. And that is actually, I guess this is a perfect time to bring it up, is I have these like terms that I use, which is active drumming and passive drumming. So to me, passive drumming is a style of drumming where you basically get relegated to the status of metronome. You are there to keep a beat and nothing else, and you don't add in any interesting little, there's a human playing a drum set. It's kind of just like you're just a metronome. Whereas active drumming, to me, I always think of like Tool. And when I think of Tool, I think their riffs really aren't that weird time signatures, sure, but they're really not that complex to play. And Danny Carey's drumming always adds that so much depth to the songs. And to me, you have always been an active drummer, and that's one of the things I like most about your music, is that drums aren't keeping the beat. They aren't just, because I have perfect BPM, you know that about me.
Yeah, you got perfect BPM.
Yeah, I can hear a song and I'll be like, that's 147 BPM.
Yeah, exactly.
I've been wrong a few times, so I guess it's not perfect, but that active drumming style of just like, you're not there to keep the beat, you're there, it's another instrument.
Yeah, exactly.
So did you just want to talk about like how you approach drums in that way?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, like a lot of times with drums, it's I don't want it to be like just a metronome, you know what I mean? Like you were saying, like it's like I always find that like just changing like little things about the drums, and then like before this EP, all my drums were live, whereas this EP, it's still live, but it's single pieces of the drum kit live at a time, just because of the setting that I'm in to avoid being loud and everything, right? So it's like this is almost like an evolution of that, where it's like each piece of the drum kit is now actively being played and like doing weird little things, and it's like stuff that like you typically wouldn't be able to play on a drum kit, because it's like each piece is being concentrated on as a full instrument rather than playing all of them at once.
This is so weird to me right now. Wait, so if I'm understanding correctly, you're saying that you recorded each part of the drum set separately?
Yeah, so it's like essentially like I'd usually start off with like the hi-hat, and I just hold the hi-hat in my hand. Like I wouldn't even have a hi-hat stand. So like I would just play the hi-hat part. And that's why, like, if you listen, like, closely, like, a lot of the drum beats are, like, weird and kind of polyrhythmic, because I'm just playing around with weird stuff that I wouldn't be able to do if I was just playing the drums normally.
There's probably parts that are, like, even for somebody like Danny Carey would be literally impossible, because you're probably just doing, like, stuff that would require, like, 3 arms at certain parts.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, it's, like, full concentration on, like, it'll be, like, a part where it's, like, you're hearing the hi-hat, the crash cymbal, the ride cymbal, and the snare all playing like individual parts simultaneously. Wow. That like require like 2 hands or something like that, right?
That's so weird, because the reason why I wanted to bring up active drumming for this EP specifically was because I really noticed it this time, and now it makes sense why I noticed it. So I didn't even know that you did that, but it makes sense now.
Yeah, I've heard like other people comment on it too. They're like, there's like just a lot of weird rhythmical things going on. Like, even if the beat's kind of straight, like on like a song like Shine, how it's like, it's the song's in 7, but then the drums just kind of have this weird drivingness to them. Like, it's just like this boom, 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 boom the whole time. And then like the kick's just like holding that, and then everything else around it is kind of just like playing around with the 7 and the 4 feels, and like I'm trying to just like intertwine like all the different drum parts So it like brings out the 7 and the 4 that are both in the song.
Oh, that's so cool. You know what you should do next is record each guitar string separately.
Yeah, each guitar string.
Yeah. I forget specifically what bands or artists it was, but I remember reading for a specific song that they did that for the chords, they recorded like 6 guitars just hitting each string.
That would sound really cool. Like that would like flesh out the sound a lot too. And you could pan each of those individual parts and like make an array of guitars that are just doing one guitar part.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember if it was like all 6 strings or if it was like the top 3 and bottom 3 strings were each different track. It was something like that.
That's really
I remember
cool.
reading it.
Because there is guitars that are capable of splitting like that too. Like there's like some I remember there was like a Gibson guitar that had like individual pickups for each string, and you could like plug it into like a bunch of different amps.
Yeah. I remember seeing it. Now that you say that, I remember seeing a video on YouTube of somebody using one of those guitars, and he has like different effects on each amp, and so it's this like craziness. There's just so much going on.
Like the guitarist from Hella, he's got like that crazy signature guitar that like he's able to assign like an effect to each string, and then like
I think it was actually him. I think it was a video with him doing it. I think you sent it to me actually.
Yeah, it's like that green guitar with his beard shavings in the finish.
Yeah, you sent trimmings. It to me. Yeah. So then I just wanted to sort of talk about the lyrics of Clear Sky. So you were saying, what the inspirations were for it. And I just wanted to say for me, I kind of read it as having 2 different meanings. The first being this idea of living in the moment. Like when you say anywhere is here, anytime is now, that's sort of like an in the moment type thing. And the second meaning was the oneness of everything. And it kind of makes me think back to, what was it? Nature Swing, I think, where you're kind of talking about like that same idea where everything and everyone, it's all like here and now, and like everyone is I, is what you say in here. And so do you just want to like speak to those themes?
Yeah, like it's like I do that a lot in my music, I feel like, especially like even on this EP especially, there's like a few songs that kind of hit on those kind of topics where it's like just like it's like what's the terms or whatever. There's like metaphysical, but there's like subcategories. There's like realism, which is like what people standardly believe in. Like it's kind of just like there's us, and then there's a reality that we live in, and we're all like moving around in that reality. But then there's like idealism, where it's like we are the reality and we're projecting it and creating it around us. And that's kind of like what I'm like embracing on like those lyrics, where it's like just everything is actually just a part of us. And like every person kind of is the same being, but then split, I guess, in a way.
Yeah. Well, because when you described realism just now, I was like, that's not how you do it. Like that.
Yeah,
it's
like, idealism.
Yeah, 100%. It's not us and then the universe. It's we are the universe. Like we are exactly a part of that system of things and entities and objects and beings.
Yeah.
And I have noticed that like just strung throughout, even, back to Thoughtscapes. Thoughtscapes, Warmth, The Other Place, Reactions, like everything. You always have this like metaphysical approach of just, just examining the nature of the things that you talk about. You're not just thinking about love. You're asking, well, what is love? How does that affect us? How does that define our relationships with people? And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it's just one of the most interesting topics to like just think about regarding life in general and death too, right? Like it's just one of those things where it's like, what even is that? What is life? What is death? Like, is there any actual defined line between it, or is it all the same experience? Like,
yeah. Well, I think we were talking about Watchmen over text recently, and it makes me think of the line in Watchmen. I think it's on Mars when Dr. Manhattan says, what is it? It's something along the lines of like a living and dead body have the same number of like particles. There is no discernible difference on like a molecular level between the living and dead.
Yeah, that's really cool. I have to read those graphic novels and even watch the movie again. And there's the TV show too, right? So
I'm not even bothering with the TV show.
No, eh? Okay.
No, yeah. I'm just like, leave it alone.
Leave it alone, eh? Yeah.
The movie was fine, but anything outside of that. So yeah, I mean, just finishing up on Clear Sky, I just wanted to say, along those lines of the themes of, living in the moment and the oneness of everything. I like how the last lines are, what is it? Anything wrapped, just a large mass now. Because I think that like just the large mass idea, it's just like the oneness, and then like ending it on now, like that final statement of like the nowness of like
the
time.
nowness.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I always like have that concept in my head of like, does anything exist other than now? Like, or is the past just a bunch of categorized memories that we have in our head, and the future just our prediction?
Yeah, which we'll talk about more deeply about the past and the present in one of the other songs on this EP, and even about the whole death thing is another song on this EP. So you definitely string a lot of the same ideas. There's a oneness to your EP, if you want to.
Yeah, exactly. There's a oneness. Yeah, it's funny because like when I was like picking the track list, like I think I had like at least like 10 or 11 songs that I could have chose from, but these were like the 6 that just like fit into place. And I feel like it's because I was just analyzing, like kind of subconsciously analyzing the lyrics and stuff like that. And I also found that like the instrumentals worked on a similar level. Like they were kind of constructed similarly. So it just like, I could pull those ones out. Like I have like other songs that have like similar lyrical topics that I just like still have like saved on my computer, and I haven't really, like I might release them at some point like as singles, or like I might make another EP if they kind of lock into place with something else, but for now they're just kind of sitting there.
Yeah, well, I can't wait to hear them. I'm always looking forward to what you do next. And so yeah, I guess we'll move into Nights in Tune now. And I just wanted to say for everybody listening, that I actually texted you about this song's lyrics. I don't know if you remember when you put it out. And I remember texting you because there was a line in it, "Nights in tune in the land of flowers and Camrys."
Yeah, that's
and
right.
I texted you and I was like, is the Camrys a reference to me? Because I used to drive a Camry. Because when I listen to the song, it's really about going to shows, like musical shows with friends, jamming with friends, and, spending time with friends. And so I thought that you were like subtly referencing not just me, but other friends. So like when you said the land of flowers, I was like, oh, is Jordy going to listen to it and be like, Land of Flowers, like that's me, in the same way that I was like, oh, Camrys, that's me. But, or maybe, Land of Flowers is our boy Evo Knievo.
There you go. Yeah.
But you rejected that hypothesis.
Yeah, no, it was, so basically it was just, it's because a lot of the shows that I played were in Brampton, Ontario. So it's like, basically that's known as Flower City. That's like the other name for Brampton.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Because there's like a lot of parks everywhere. And then like just, you see a lot of Toyota Camrys everywhere. That's the reasoning for that part. It's very like simple reasoning. Like it's just like if you look at like when you're like driving around and you see like any student driver program, they're usually in a Toyota Camry. Like they're like just that's the car that you learn to drive in when you're from Brampton.
Yeah, so I was just reading way too much into it and expecting so much out of that, and then it was just like, oh, it's just a reference to a city.
Yeah, but that's kind of, I like that as well, though. I like that, like, you can pick up on something and then, like, have your own meaning behind it, right? Like, to me, that's like, it's like the Lynchian thing where it's just like, yeah, you're also right. Because, like, you formed that idea in your head, right?
Well, I know when Lynch was asked, I think, about Lost Highway, because he wrote that with another writer. And somebody asked him what Lost Highway is about. And he said, well, what it's about is different to me and this other writer. Like, even exactly. The two people that wrote it had different ideas. But I think that there's, I think it's potentially easy for people to be like, oh, you don't like this movie because you don't understand it. You're not interpreting it right. Or, oh, this movie, leaves things open to interpretation through ambiguity. But I think you ride this nice line of like, even for something like that, you're specifically intentionally referencing a city, but you're also referencing it in a way that's so obscurist that it almost
I didn't want to.
Yeah, you didn't want to just say, "Oh, I miss going to shows in Brampton."
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like you want to make it like a little bit more poetic, and then when you do that, you kind of open it up for different interpretations.
And so are you aware of that? Like when you're writing a line like that, are you aware of like, I'm going to leave it open by doing this?
Yeah, definitely. Like that's kind of the intention going into writing it like that, is just basically I want people to read it and I want some confusion to happen sometimes, you know what I mean? Like, but then it's because I just find it's fun when like I'm listening to somebody else's music and I read a line and I have my own interpretation, but then when I find out what the real interpretation is, it's like, oh, okay, yeah. Like I just like, that's just something I've picked up from other artists too.
Yeah, but the thing with that, with, you know, at least for me with other artists, is that I never forget what I initially thought about it. I never forget my interpretation, right? Because I think that's important. But like to me, this song was very much about holding on to hope in these difficult, you know, COVID times that we're in. It was really just like a way of kind of saying, yeah, it sucks right now, but remember what we used to be able to do. And sort of like those things are coming again, you know?
Yeah. There's hope for the future. It's kind of, I was like, when I was making this song, I was thinking of that song off of Reactions, Face to Faceless. It's like, it's almost kind of like a sequel to that song in a lot of ways. Like, just like theme wise, and also like even the instrumentals kind of like got like that soft, like slower kind of like, just like, it's like sad but happy. It's like bittersweet tone to it almost.
Yeah, you have that in a lot of your songs. A
Yeah,
lot
the
of
bittersweet.
like, yeah, you have a lot of that, like, here's a difficult thing, but you always like, it's not even like sugarcoating it. It's just like you manage to flip it, and that's what I'm talking about with like, you know, you have a lot of like metaphysical themes in your lyrics. Is you always kind of manage to like find that like deeper meaning or that deeper positivity that's like embedded in that negativity.
Yeah, definitely. That's like just kind of an outlook that I like to have on life, right? Like you always have to find the lesson within things that happen to you and stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh, and it certainly, you know, makes sense coming from you. You know, it's like I don't hear these lyrics and I'm like, oh, that doesn't remind me of Will. That guy's like an asshole. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it like I hear these lyrics and I'm like, oh yeah, like, you know, I think of you as somebody who's like very thoughtful, and you reflect a lot and you think about, you know, meaning of things and life and, you know, our place with each other and yeah. I think that's cool.
Yeah, I try my best to be like a reflective kind of meditative person, you know? Not always, but
and
a lot of the time.
For me at least, it's like you kind of like intellectualize things where, you know, you're kind of like, you're trying to legitimately answer what is our purpose as like a human being and all this, but in our interactions with people, you know, it influences those interactions, but we allow ourselves to be emotional as well.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So the next song, Shine, I'm just going to say that this is my favorite song on the EP.
Yeah, you like it, eh?
Yeah,
it's the one that I've like me personally, just like listening to it, it's the one I return to the most.
Well, it's so just like uplifting, in my opinion. It has this quality of just like, there's so many emotions to be found in this song, but I think that like, and there is sort of that like bittersweetness a bit to it, but it's mostly like the tone is just so cathartic almost. And every album that you've ever put out, there's always at least one song that makes me feel like truly emotional, like I am emotionally affected by the song. And that doesn't happen to me much anymore. You know, I feel like I've listened to so much music that I judge it very objectively a lot. But like, for example, like Shine, it just like, it's not even, it doesn't feel like I'm listening to music. It feels like I'm like having a new experience. And I just wanted to ask, in the chorus, is that an accordion?
No, there's no accordion in the chorus.
Is it like a synth or something?
Yeah, it's a synth.
Okay, because it sounds like an accordion. I was like, that is so awesome.
It's like this weird, like, vibraty, chirpy synth sound that kind of it's like almost like a drawn-out accordion stretch.
Yeah.
Like, when you listen to it, yeah.
Because I thought you, like, bought an accordion, and I was like, that is awesome.
Yeah, it'd be great just for that one song, and then just done. No more accordion.
Yeah, just sell it on Kijiji.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I would say, I like how the song starts with that like simple like 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, there's boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, it just
Yeah.
like gets the beat going, and then it just launches into what I would consider one of my favorite choruses of the past year or two. Um, and like I said, it's just that chorus is just so uplifting and so catchy. Um, and I just wanted to ask, like, how do you come up with like vocal sections like that?
Like for like just like melody wise or
Yeah,
rhythmically, like
yeah, just I mean both, because I feel like you play around a lot with like rhythms, and how the vocals a lot of the time are doing something entirely different rhythmically than the instruments. But then also, how do you come up with that like the flow of like the delivery, I guess?
yeah, this like so in this case in this song, it's everything was originally written in 7, but then I kind of decided as an afterthought to have that 4 bass underneath. Like that's why you get that 4 count in, because I wanted people to know like there's this underneath everything else, right? That you can kind of bob your head to, even though it's all in an odd time signature. And then as far as like the vocal melody and stuff goes, that's actually like it's part of the guitar part as well, but the guitar part's just kind of like a more fleshed out version of it. Like I'm like finger picking on the acoustic, and it's like this kind of like blah, da, 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 blah, 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 da, blah, kind of like bass that's going on there. And it's like I'm kind of just like I'm keeping that melody on top while shifting the bass notes underneath to give it like different moods. So there's like also like trying to think. There's a part that's part way through the song. It's like it's after, I believe it's after the second chorus. I'm just trying to remember exactly where it is in the song, but it's like I changed the bass notes completely, but it keep that same melody over top, and it's like that. Oh, it shines. And then it like becomes more uplifting again. And it's like I don't know what to do about it.
I actually did
like
notice
little
that.
part.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so like for that part specifically, like the bass notes were completely changed from the chorus, but it's still the same melody on top as the chorus and the guitar playing. And then I just like I was like I'm not going to do the chorus again. I'll just do something that's a little more free with the vocals, kind of like play around on top of it.
Yeah. I feel like you do like all of those ideas. I feel like you do those a lot in your songs. We are having like the vocals mirror an instrument, like the melody on an instrument, and then you're playing around with everything else to sort of shift the tones.
Yeah, like I like the idea of like stringing chords together with a melody. You know what I mean? Like you pick that one melody and then you find all the chords that work underneath it, and then you don't necessarily use them all at once. You kind of pick which section of the song you want to put that chord in with that melody over top.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like if you have like a nice major chord structure and then you find a line that works over the root chord, then you can kind of just like, oh, I'll introduce this chord later with that same melody over top and give it like a different feel almost.
Yeah, that's cool. It's like nothing is ever really repeated the same way twice.
Yeah.
It's like when you go back to
exactly.
something, I noticed a lot that you add something new or change something about it.
Yeah, like even like repeated choruses and stuff, I like to kind of just add a different flavor to the second time around just to make it sound fresh again.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So kind of back to the metaphysical thing with your lyrics, is they are usually very straightforward. Like when you read the lyrics, they're very straightforward and the themes are pretty easy to pick up on, but you always have that metaphysical approach. These ideas of like, what is love, and what is it like to love, what are our dreams, what is it like to have dreams, and stuff like that, and the nature of our personal identity and how that relates to the nature of ourselves and our relationship with other people. And I think that you really hammer that home in this song. There's a line, you reply and show me that I'm here, which was a super interesting line to me, because it almost speaks to the nature of ourselves as humans, and our reliance on interaction with other people to discover ourselves at most.
Yeah, definitely. That's like basically you kind of just like nailed it with the exact meaning of that part. Like it's just you want acknowledgement of what you think in your brain.
Yeah, it's a good
I
word.
mean? Like
acknowledgement. Yeah.
You just want that acknowledgement to tell for someone else to agree with you the things that you think in your head, because then it just makes you feel like, okay, like I make sense as a person, like what I'm doing and everything is similar to what other people are doing and thinking.
Yeah, and it's very much a reflection of, speaking of like metaphysics, of your experience of that. It's not just, you're not just saying, oh, it's nice to get validation from others. You're saying that, like, as people, the way that we experience that validation is like through another person's acknowledgement of like how we exist.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, it's just like a very, it's kind of deep when you think about it like that. Like when you just add those layers to it, where it's like you're just using somebody else's thought process to acknowledge yourself in a way, like give yourself a sense of meaning.
Mm-hmm. And like it speaks to connection too. I don't know if this is, this is the song where you say, together doing nothing is a poem, which kind of, if that you reply and show me that I'm here line speaks to the nature of our connection with other people. I think that this line really kind of, you ask anybody with a best friend, I'll back up a bit. Like, like when you meet somebody new and, it's the first time you've met somebody, sometimes there can be these awkward silences where you're like, I'm not sure what to say, whatever. But when you're with, a best friend, there's no such thing as an awkward silence. There's just silence, like an understood silence. And to me, that together doing nothing as a poem is almost like there's, even when you're hanging out with somebody and doing absolutely nothing, there's still a beauty there. There's still a connection happening.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like it's kind of the whole meaning. And then when you take both sides of that chorus and kind of put them together, that's like kind of forming like the perfect kind of relationship, right? Like regardless of what kind of relationship it is, it's like that's just kind of what you seek out as a human. It's like someone to validate you through their mental process, and then for you to just be comfortable enough with that other person that nothing really needs to be said or done in any moment spent with them. Like it's just,
yeah, there's no fear of judgment or
exactly,
or fear. When you meet a new person, it's like, oh, I'm just nervous and that's why I'm not talking. I hope they don't think that like I don't like them because I'm not talking to them or something, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like there is that understood connection, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
This feels like less of an interview and more of a, I'm telling you what your lyrics are about, and then you saying, that's right.
Yeah, that's it. You like basically, I feel like that's what the intent of the lyrics is, though. At the same time, though, right, to be understood. Like I don't want to make it too convoluted, but I want to make it nice sounding for people to listen to. Like
yeah, and I mean, it may not be an intended effect of these types of lyrics, but I think stop drinking when we're recording. No, I'm just kidding. Don't spit it out. All right. I actually just completely lost what I was about to say. Oh yeah, I'm not sure if it's like an intended effect of the lyrics, but when you are talking about these themes and you're talking about, human connection and sort of like how you deal with the world around you, as a listener, it makes me think about, am I like that? Am I the same as Will in these aspects, or am I different? It makes me question my own identity, which is, I think, where when we talk about depth in art and whether a piece of art is deep or not, I think to me that's what defines depth, is the ability for the work of art to hold a mirror up to you and for you to engage with that and question yourself and really think, how does this affect me? Does this change how I think? And a lot of the time, it does. And I can say over the past few years that, certain lyrics in your songs have made me kind of think about things a little bit differently, and sort of like has resulted in a shift in my mindset, I would say like permanently. So.
well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, like that's kind of like the subconscious goal of when I'm writing stuff like that, right? Like I'm not just thinking like, oh yeah, I want to change people with these lyrics, like, but it's just something that's like, I guess it's a natural reaction, like when I kind of reach in like that and then put stuff out, and then people are just going to compare themselves to it automatically, right?
Yeah, I think you and I make drastically different music.
Yeah.
Our styles are so different, but I think that the one thing that we have in common is that, and I don't want to like shame, stadium rock bands, but that's just like not what we do.
Yeah.
We're not writing music to get on the radio. We're pouring our hearts into our music, and we're putting it out there and being like, feel something. And
Yeah,
for
exactly.
me, with the style of music that I do, I get a sort of like a lot of like, it's not even music, it's just noise or something, that, whatever. But, I'm always just like, well, at least you feel something,
Yeah, that's exactly it, right? Like, at least you felt something from this, regardless of what the feeling is.
The worst, in my opinion, and you can give yours, the worst kind of reaction to stuff that you make is just, yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, it's just because you just know, like, they're just not even engaging with it in any way at that point, right? Like, they heard it and they just thought, yeah, this is music.
Yeah. And I've written reviews where I give something 5 out of 10 and the review is just like, this exists.
Yeah, exactly. That's like the 5 out of 10 is kind of like, as much as it's not as low of a score as something lower, it just feels less visceral. Like, it feels like there was less of a reaction to it because it's just completely mediocre. It's just completely dead center, right?
All my favorite reviews that I've ever written were the 0s, 1s, 9s, and 10s, is because I was like,
yeah,
I either loved it or hated it, but I'm passionate about my opinion on it.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Anyway, so what else did I have about this song? Oh yeah, so just a little bit more on the "you reply and show me that I'm here" line. It actually made me think of the Turing Test. You know the Turing Test?
What's the Turing Test?
So the Turing Test is used to judge the humanness or the human qualities of an artificial intelligence. So
okay.
the idea is that, the person who's part of the test, they don't know whether or not they're speaking to a human or an AI.
Right.
And
okay.
the AI passes the Turing Test if the person that's speaking with it truly believes that that they are speaking to a human being.
Right. Okay. That's cool. I like that.
And so for some reason that, sorry, where is it? You reply and show me that I'm here line. That like makes me think of the Turing Test because it's like, it's really kind of like talking about like some sort of like fundamental connection between people. And, with artificial intelligence, it's like, it makes me think like, will there ever be an AI that humans feel emotional connection to in the way that,
right,
we say something to it and we feel validated through its response.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, that'd be like, that's like the final step almost, you know what I mean, to creating that like perfectly replicated AI. Like, it's just like, that's the deepest level right there, I feel like. Well, thank you very much.
So on every single one of your albums, there's always a line that I fall in love with solely for your delivery. I think back to, your EP Warmth with the song Another Place, the Next Thing I Know, My Mind Begins to Grow. That one.
Yeah.
On this album, it's the in this song in Shine. Is that what the name of the song is? Did I just get it wrong? No, it is. Okay.
Yeah, it's Shine. You're right. Don't worry.
Okay. Now I'll just scroll back. So in this album, it's the "Who is this existence with aura of bounce and beauty."
Okay, yeah.
That
like
line
that,
delivery to me is just so like, it's that simple idea of like you have this like ascending voice pattern, but your delivery is just so good in that.
Yeah, it's just with that, like, that's kind of like almost like a more wrapped delivery, right? In that line,
Yeah,
like, it's like,
which is why I think it strikes me so much, is because you do this a lot. I think your two biggest influences are prog and rap.
Yeah, definitely.
That's like 90% of what you listen to, basically.
That's why, like, my favorite albums are when those two things can come together, right? Like,
yeah, and like I would never describe your albums as like hip hop, but you integrate it into your music so seamlessly, And I think that's what I really like about this line is that, you know, it seems like you're kind of rapping, but then out of nowhere, you're adding like a melody, like you're adding like notes. Because like when a lot of people listen to hip hop, you don't think of the rapping as like notes. Like technically there's a frequency still, and technically there are notes, but like you kind of just come out of nowhere with this like rapping notes.
Yeah, okay, I see what you mean. Yeah, because I feel like there is like inherently this like even if I'm not trying to have a melody to it, it's just gonna come out melodically in certain ways because there's always like it feels like there's like a frequency that feels the best for that part. You know what I mean? Like I'll pitch my voice to a certain level. And I know like even in that part, like there's lines in between where I am kind of hitting notes here and there. Like it is like almost like a sing rap kind of thing going on.
Yeah, because like it comes from immediately before it. I think there's like some rapped lyrics, and then you do that, and then like the next line, you're singing the line like "I need to let go of my ego, so I can drown
that's
you
yeah,
anytime."
song. Yeah,
So it almost like it shifts the song from that like rap style to the singing style by doing something in between, like literally in between in the song, but also in between those two different styles.
yeah, exactly. Because it's got a lot of it. It's got a lot of inflection to it, right? Like it's like da 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 da, like kind of like it's like almost like an attitude is put into it.
Yeah, for sure.
Bless you.
It was a cough.
Yeah, okay, I see what you mean. Yeah. Oh, okay.
So the next song is Comfort.
Okay, Comfort. Yep.
All right, and then so the next song is Death. No, I'm just kidding. We'll talk about Comfort.
Okay.
So when it comes to Comfort, again, you texted me because these were all released as singles before the EP came out, and I remember you texted me and you were like, "Listen to my new song. It's sexy." And
Yeah,
to me,
it's a sexy song.
I was like, you know, oh, he doesn't actually mean it's a sexy song. He just is saying, you know, it's a good song. You should check it out, but in like, you know, kind of like a funny way. But then I listened to it, and you totally went for some sort of like sexy vibe. You know, you have the falsettos, even the instrumentation a bit kind of sounds like porno-esque.
Yeah, like I put like those like like phaser guitars and stuff like that.
Yeah,
just made it like sensual sounding.
It makes me think of like 70s pornos, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
So here's a two-part question about this song.
Yeah.
Are you aware during the chorus that the falsetto is a red line?
Yes, definitely. Because like I just watch it when I'm like recording it in Audacity too, right? Like there's like certain parts, and then like even like I'm trying to think like the verse where I'm doing the falsetto parts, like where it's just like that pure falsetto as like the lead vocal, that was like intentionally just like distorted. Like I'm pretty sure I put distortion on it and everything too. So when I hit those like ooh, like it's just like you get that like grating sound to it, right?
Well,
it
even distorted when you just did it now.
Yeah, right there. Like maybe I just have that quality. Maybe it's like extra loud in my voice when I do stuff like that.
So I was thinking when I was setting up this question that you were likely aware of it, but then my follow-up question would be, was that intentional? And I don't necessarily mean did you plan it and then record it that way? It could be that you recorded it and you're like, oh crap, it redlined, but it sounds good, I'm going to keep it in there.
Yeah, that's the exact scenario right there. Like that's a lot of my music, right? It's like it's not intentional at first, but then once I like observe it in Audacity or whatever, I'm like, or even if it's like at the stage where it's still in my interface recorder, it's like I just look at it and I kind of go like, do I want to redo that again, or does it just sound really good the way it is? Like, am I just enjoying it the way it is? And there's a lot of times where it's like, or like even like an instrumental mistake, like if I like do some weird thing on the guitar that I didn't mean to do, but then I listen to it later and it's like sounds like it's working really nicely and it fits in with everything else, then I don't bother changing it because it's just sounds more in the moment that way. And it just sound like I like how natural things can sound when you kind of leave it up to like chance like that, I guess.
Yeah, leave the mistakes in.
Yeah.
Riley's on YouTube now.
Nice. YouTube sensation.
Yeah, YouTube sensation for sure. My 100
Yeah.
view video. Actually, it might get more views because you're in it. You'll share it.
Yeah, I'll share it. I'll get my friends to share it. We'll all share it.
But yeah, I like what you say about that. Just sort of, because sometimes it is a matter of, you record something, you messed it up, and then you listen to it, and you're like, oh, I need to record that again. But then there's other times where you're like, this is better than what I could come up with intentionally.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the same kind of thing with this. It's just like, just that little grittiness, the distortion. It's like, that's a tone that I didn't expect, but I really like it. So I'm just going to leave it that way.
It somehow seems to fit so well. It's almost like if this was clean and not redlining, it just wouldn't feel the same. It adds like an edge to it or something. Like, I don't know. It's so good.
Yeah, like it almost like makes it a little more vintage sounding or something, like a little crackly. Like, I don't know. Like it's hard to put the right words to what it is, but it's something along those lines.
I think it's the idea of, trying to be too perfect in the studio can make something sound I don't know, like castrated almost.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like, oh, this has like it's like that 5 out of 10, like this exists. It's like you listen to something and you're just like, there's nothing here. It's just, it's too perfect, it's too clean. But adding keeping those mistakes in, or like, just distorting the vocals a bit is like, there's a human element to it.
Yeah, that's what I like. I like having the human element.
So we've talked about this before, but for this EP specifically, when it comes to the guitar solos, how many of them are written note for note versus totally improvised versus, in between somewhere?
All of them are in between somewhere. That's the way I describe it. So it's like, every single one. It's a specific process too. It's like, that's the thing that I redo over and over again the most out of anything in any of my songs is the guitar solos. Like, that's the part that I always get stuck on with each song, because basically it'll start off, I'll improvise, and then I'll be okay, scratch that take. But then there's parts of that improvisation that I remember that I liked, and then I'm like, I gotta keep those parts of the improvisation in. And then usually it'll go anywhere from being totally improvised at first to like somewhat improvised with the key melody parts put in. But then there's the odd solo where it'll go all the way to being a fully written solo. Just from like improvising, finding new parts that I can do, and then like just eventually by the end, it's just every part I'm predicting and trying to like match and perfect.
Yeah, so you didn't like sit down and like write it, like Zappa, like note for note. But it's like over time, you're just like, you end up with something that's basically written.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, it's just this process. Like, usually it's like anywhere between like 20 and 30 takes for the guitar solo.
Wow.
And then by the time I'm at the end, it's something that like I've half memorized, half improvised.
So it's almost like, there's checkpoints of like, I'm going to do this at a point, and then I'm going to kind of go off the rails, but then I want to come back to like this little phrase that I wrote.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like certain chords that you hit where it's like, okay, that's when that phrase is going to come in, because that sounds really nice over top of that. But yeah, it's exactly what you said. It's like checkpoints. Like,
yeah, and I guess it's like, okay, when the drums do this is when I want to do this phrase, because it fits so nice there. And yeah, sometimes I'll copy what the drums are doing rhythmically on the guitar, like for a guitar solo part, because that's always nice to do in a guitar solo. Like, it's always, it just makes it sound more like the whole, like tight, I guess is the way to describe it. Yeah, I was gonna say cohesive.
Yeah, or cohesive too. Yeah.
Okay, Death. This is the next song, Death. I love how rhythmic this song is. I feel like you were talking about earlier how you usually do guitar first and then drums, and I feel like the drums really drive this song from the beginning.
Yeah, it's got like that shuffling kind of beat to it.
Yeah, it sets the pace for the entire song, and then you have these like what I call popping bass notes.
Well, thank you very much.
Like those bass notes that kind of just like pop in. Can you just like explain your process for like making those like the bass sound like that?
So like with the like that's literally like, it's like a slapped and pop bass line for that one. And it's like that kind of like, So it's like, yeah, like you basically nailed it already. Like it's just like I'm slapping the bass on that. And that's like I don't normally do that in my songs. A lot of times it's like finger picked stuff. And then with that particular bass line, I mimicked it on the guitar too. So I did like there's like an octave above being played at the same time as the bass
I don't know if I noticed that.
with like a slightly distorted guitar.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think there's synth that lines up with it too as well. I believe at certain parts, but then sometimes it branches off and does its own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was gonna say, like, you already said that you don't really do that much in your songs with the bass like that, and that I think that's why I noticed it, because I was like, oh, he doesn't really do it like this too much, and I found it. I would have thought that would have popped up in like a more like funky song and a more like uplifting song, but it's literally like you're using it on Death, a much more, at least with the other instruments, much more mellow. And so I just found it really interesting how you made those bass notes pop out the way you did.
Yeah, yeah. It's like I think like I'm trying to think of other songs that I've done it on, like Superhero on Thoughtscapes. I did it on that song because that's like that boom bap boom boom bap boom bap boom bap boom boom. Yeah, like that song's got the pop bass on it.
Which is where you would, in my opinion, expect to hear that kind of sound a bit more, and the
Yeah,
more like
exactly.
kind of like something that has like a groove. Whereas this, it's like, I don't know, it's like that the bittersweetness that we were talking about earlier. It has a different quality to it when it's used in
Yeah,
this context.
definitely.
Right?
Yeah.
And I like how, your lyrics for this song, for Death, they start out slow. Like you really like are singing word. What are you doing?
I'm reaching for my phone charger right now.
Oh, okay.
I'm preparing it because I got the 20% battery notification.
Oh no, where were you at when you started the interview?
I think I was at like at least 70, 80%.
Oh shit, you better plug that in.
Bap boop boop bap.
But yeah, so the lyrics on Death, I like how they start out like so slow. Like you are like, every 3 seconds or every 5 seconds, you're just singing like one word. And then it
Yeah.
starts to get a bit quicker until like you're
Starts
kind of
to pick
doing
up.
your rapping. Yeah.
Yeah. Another interesting thing about oh yeah, like the building up. Yeah, that's actually something that happens a lot in my songs. I find is like I'll start off slow and kind of like pick up the pace vocally, but yeah, with that it was just kind of like I feel like that's something that I've really kind of envisioned before even recording the vocals. Like just having the instrumental there, I was like, I want something that kind of hits all these different like rhythmical points that are possible over top of like the shuffle beat. And like you can do so much with that kind of beat. Like it's just so much fun. It's like a really fun type of beat to just ride over vocally and do different things. And then yeah, like it just I guess naturally I just kind of made it so it was like slow, slow, and then you kind of start picking up, and then like it kind of breaks after a little bit, right? And then it like kind of says like la, and like it has like that long drawn out one afterwards.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of like it's just something like subconscious almost that I'm not even thinking about doing. But then once it's all written out and I've like got all the lyrics and everything, it's just the way it kind of flows out of my brain, I guess.
It's something that you feel.
Yeah, exactly.
I was talking earlier a bit about, the way that I think both like intellectualize things, and we like to think about meanings and purposes and philosophy and science and stuff. And for me, I think I think about it and I read about it, and I watch movies that are very much about these things enough that it becomes internalized. And so when I end up writing songs and I'm deciding how things should go, it's never really a process of like, oh well, how do I make this metaphysical? It's just whatever feels right. I'm relying on my gut, which I've like trained almost.
Yeah, exactly. That's definitely a part of my process too. You just gotta rely on your gut with a lot of different things, especially vocals for me and lyric writing. It's just like usually the first thing or the second thing I come up with is what's going to go down in the lyrics. Because I always find in retrospect I like my lyrics better. Like when I come back to it later, I'm like, oh yeah, like I'm really happy I wrote it this way.
Oh really?
So I've kind of like just trusted that process now. Like I'm just always like, okay, it's always gonna feel better later when I come back to it.
Yeah, like when I come back to it in a year and read these, I'm gonna be like, I wrote those.
Yeah.
Like how the hell
That was
did
the
I
fun
write
thing
those lyrics?
Yeah, exactly. It was fun with the CP too because like what I was saying before, where I had a bunch of songs made and then I came back through them and then organized them into the EP. I was kind of already having that retrospective approach before even releasing the EP.
Oh wow.
Which is like kind of cool for me.
Yeah. I go out of frame somewhat when I sit up like that. It's pretty cool. What else?
Also, like
Go ahead.
an interesting thing with that song is that song did not start off first with guitar. That song started off with the keyboard first, and you can kind of tell because of the intro. Cause
I was gonna say, doesn't it
like
come in with the keyboard intro? Yeah.
Yeah, that's how you can kind of determine with my songs. Whatever the first instrument you hear is probably like the one that pops out the most. You know what I mean?
So in my one of my first questions was, I like the intro. Clear Sky as an intro to the EP because, you know, it comes in with the guitar and everything gets thrown on top. Do you always do that? And it seems like the answer is yeah.
Yeah, like it's just one of those things that's just a pattern within my music. Like there's the odd song that'll come in full blast with all the instruments, and then it's hard to tell then, but like for the most part, it's kind of like that. And it's always been different for every album too. Like on Thoughtscapes, that was like pure bass. Every song was the bass part was written first, and then everything got built on top of that.
The bass, really?
Yeah, for some reason it was just like, even like the song Tired, like that was just a bass line at first.
Yeah.
And then I just built off of it.
Oh, that's so weird. Because I would think like, well, it has to be either the guitar or drums. You know, like starting anywhere. I mean, I guess keyboard and whatever, but like guitar and drums to me are like, you have an idea, build it around one of these two things.
Yeah, exactly. Like it was weird. Like for some reason I just found songwriting on the bass was the most fun. And I think that's what caused me to just do it first, for that album in particular.
Do you think part of that was just you were much more of a guitar and drum player up until that point, and so you're kind of just looking for something new?
Yeah, I guess so. Like I did play bass a lot as well, but I just found like bass is the middle ground between the two, right? Like it's like the rhythm and the melody. So it's almost like you don't feel too much pressure when you're playing the bass to do something fancy. So you kind of just, you know, you're making the foundation when you're writing the bass part first. So you're like, I can allow this to expand in so many different directions because this is the middle point. And you can kind of go melodically and rhythmically away from that as you're creating the song.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. Just 1 second.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry about that.
No problem.
So there are so many layers in the instrumentation on this album and over all of your work. But it never sounds like there's too many layers. And so I noticed on this EP especially that you're so good at just having a lot going on without being to the point of being overwhelming. And I think that just comes down to an efficiency with the way that you write your parts. So do you just want to speak to that?
Yeah, so I feel like with that, like with a lot of my parts, they kind of are like, well, it's kind of speaking general, but they're all meant to be part of one big whole, right? So it's but yeah, so essentially it's like I try to hit a middle ground with the parts where it's like they're exciting enough where it sounds like something like cool is going on with each instrument, but it's not so overblown and like fast playing or complicated that they just all start smashing into each other, right? Like I want it to sound organized, and I'm not stressed out about trying to like impress with like the flashiness of the playing or anything like that. I just want it to sound like tonally and rhythmically like nice in the end and like spaced out. Like I would never put more than like 16 layers in a song. Like that's just like my cap is like
16?
Including vocals too. Yeah.
Okay.
It's like that's the furthest I've ever gone with like my music basically. And with this EP, because I had that whole thing with the drums where everything's kind of split up in the drums, I actually allocated more space for the drums this time around and did less with like the rest of the instruments.
Okay.
It's like, it's very subtle though. It's not like a huge difference, but because I had to like space out all the drums, I just found like I wanted to add more drum layers because of that.
Yeah, I mean, you say that it's like, not super noticeable, but now that you say it, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And
You kind of hear it a little bit.
yeah, and it comes down to that, like, the reason why I asked about the active drumming on this album was because I was like, oh, the drums are different than I'm used to, even with you.
They're almost like a little bit more present, I guess, is the way I describe it. Because they're almost like they're more strict in what they're doing rhythmically, but they're still very free sounding, I guess, at the same time.
Yeah, and the way I like to think about it is that, like, you could literally take out all the other instruments and just have the drums, and it would still be an interesting song.
Yeah, just because like the drums are just doing so many weird things, right? Like,
yeah,
they're all very like bouncy, just like groovy drum parts when it comes down to it.
and the fact that you recorded them all separately means that everything is doing its own thing, and so there's always something to shift your attention to and pick up on, which is why I hate passive drumming.
You don't like that passive drumming?
I don't like the passive drumming. You take everything out of a song with passive drumming, and you just listen to the drums, and you're like, come on,
Yeah, it just sounds like a little click track drum pattern.
Basically. Yeah. So this song actually also had a line that I loved in terms of, both the lyrics and your delivery, which was it was meaningless, just a weight that was useless. I'm feeling it.
Yeah.
That's a cool lyric.
Yeah, so that's like, it kind of ties into the whole like life versus death, what happens when you die kind of thing. That's like the whole theme of the song, right? Is like my interpretation of what might happen. And it's like, I feel like when you die, it's almost like, oh, everything I was worried about, everything that I felt was good and bad and important is now just like wiped clean. Like the slate is just gone. And like, it's like almost like a peaceful experience. It's like an emptiness of your brain or whatever, like of your consciousness, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, you also, when you die, you empty into your pants.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that's
a lot of fecal matter.
That's what this song's about, I think.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Taking that last shit.
Yeah. Then the last song, Aware. And I will say also that Death is my second favorite song on the album. And I know that a month or two ago when we were talking about it, you said that it was your favorite. Yeah. Is it still your favorite?
Yeah. I'd say either that or Shine. Like, I'm the same with you. Like, it's kind of like a mixed bag. Like, I don't know which one's my favorite, right? Just depending on my mood, I guess.
Yeah, and not that the other songs are bad. I like every single song on here, but both of those really, I think, stand out among them. And so the last track, Aware, we were talking about, one of the lyrics, earlier. We weren't talking about the lyric, but we were talking about sort of like when we were talking about metaphysics. The lyric in Aware is, existence is our current frame. The past is just the frames retained. The future is just your mind playing. So just relax and play the game. And you were kind of talking about this earlier when you were talking about metaphysics. Is that the nowness, existing in the now, in the moment.
That's like literally, my lyrical version of that. What I was saying before is like, like what I was saying. It's like the past is just like a categorization of all your memories, and sometimes you drop things out and they just completely leave existence, essentially, because you've forgotten them, right? And then like you get things, and then the future is just what you're predicting, essentially. It's not existent until it actually happens, and then once it happens, it's no longer existent again because now it's in the past. Yeah,
it's almost like there is no moment, and you actually have a lyric in here. The present is our everything. The present is our everything. Not then, but now. It's everything. Just this exists. It's everything. And then you say, the last four lines are nothing now. So it's like each of those lines is like, here's the moment. Here's the moment. Here's the moment. And then you're like, those last four lines, they're not the moment anymore. They're gone.
Yeah, they're gone. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. I like how you played around with that idea, just throughout the song, and just that whole idea of the past is just the frames retained. And you were saying, sometimes these memories, they just stop existing. But then what I find so cool about memory is sometimes it gets re-triggered.
Yeah, it just re-triggers.
Somebody says, hey, remember this from public school or, elementary school, whatever you call it. And you're like, oh my God, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
And then it
And
never
just
leaves your
appears
brain again.
Yeah. And the funny thing about those lines too is like the last line is unless you go replay the sound. So it's kind of like this is acknowledging that this is also a song too. So you can replay this part over again and make it exist again. But like for now, like it's gone until you go replay it.
And I had that line written down in the quote, and I was going to get to that next. The unless you go replay the sound, sorry, because it is just like the way that you play with that is like, it's almost like you're, when you recorded those vocals, that was the only time that those vocals were actually the now. And so when I'm listening to this recording of you saying just this exists, or not then but now, I'm not actually hearing you saying that in the now. I'm hearing a recording of you saying it from the past.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like that self-awareness.
Digital version. Yeah. Yeah, I tried to be very meta with those lines. Like I wanted to, like, it's like I'm talking about the song itself in these lines, basically.
Yeah, when I first heard it and you said the last 4 lines are nothing now, I was like, wait, what were the last 4 lines? I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, they're just gone.
So if there's anything else you want to talk about, let's do it.
It's just like I've found that making this album has been nice just because it's like it's a different experience from everything else I've made so far. Just like because different location for recording, like just different like thoughts going through my head because just a lot of things have changed in my life, like making this album. Like just my setting in general has just been changed a lot. So I do feel like this separation with this EP compared to everything that came before it, like it's just kind of stands out on its own. Even Reactions was kind of in its own space as well, just because that was like the beginning of the pandemic, so I did feel like I was in a different place as well. But it's just like the recording process is completely different here, and just a lot of stuff is just very much different. And it's like interesting to see people's reactions to that, because I know like a lot of people do, like there's quite a few people that like this EP more than like anything else I've made.
Yeah.
It like depends on who you ask though, right?
I just want to clarify for people listening, because you were saying with Reactions, and then you're talking about how people reacted to it, their reactions. Reactions is an album that you did. But you're also talking
it's an album that I made.
Yeah. So you have an album Reactions, but you're also talking... Are you still here? Hello?
Hello.
Hey, your camera
see me?
died on me, eh?
Yeah, it did.
I don't see you. I see your picture. But I'll just keep saying what I was saying before, is that you have an album Reactions, but you're also talking about the reactions of people. Squilly by Willy, who is you. Can you just acknowledge it? That's correct.
This is me. I am Squilly. And I am Willy.
And you have my express permission to upload this to YouTube, and you've agreed to not copyright strike me.
I have agreed to all of those terms.
Okay, thank you. So, I've already told you I'm giving your album a 9 out of 10, which in my rating system means amazing.
This is me. I am Squilly. And I am Willy. I have agreed to all of those terms.
So, at the end of my WandaVision and Dota reviews, I've started to suggest things to viewers, things that are similar to what's being reviewed, or, things that, we think that, or I think that they should check out. So I'm going to end this review doing the same thing. So I would obviously, for me, I would suggest everybody goes and listens to Squilly by Willy. Can you acknowledge that that's you?
That is me. I acknowledge
Okay,
this.
you cut out a bit, but that's fine. Also listen to his other albums, Thoughtscapes, Warmth, The Other Place, Reactions. Reactions, the album, not the reactions of other people. Listen to In the Court of the Crimson King by King Crimson. Probably without that album, you probably wouldn't be making the music that you make.
No.
Also, you mentioned Lynch earlier. We're both huge fans of Lynch. Go watch Twin Peaks.
No. I would suggest Frank Zappa. Definitely Frank Zappa. Gentle Giant I would just hold like as high as Frank Zappa. They're just like very instrumentally insane. Also, like with this EP specifically, I'd recommend like Midnight Gospel or something. Watch that show.
Oh yeah, and go watch Zack Snyder's Justice League because it is amazing. Do this, just wave to the viewers. You froze, but that's okay. See ya.
Once upon a time, a man was born with an analytical mind, consuming only what reveals me. Well, Jesse Revell. I wonder what he thinks about
Squilly by Willy, Squilly by Willy, Squilly by Willy, Squilly by Willy, Squilly by Willy.